Tonight's top story, we are now just 68 hours away from the first North Dakota Super Bowl since 2003. What are you laughing at? Good evening and welcome to 630 Point of View. I'm Chris Berg. Thanks so much for joining us. Saturday, here's some more math for you, Beth, is going to be the 111th meeting between NDSU and UND, but the first one where UND has no name. Also, another first for this long and intense rivalry. It will be the first time this game will have the one and only Beth Hool as a sideline reporter. And she joins us tonight. Thanks for allowing us to be in your presence tonight. It's good to have you here.
Oh, goodness. You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, huge
Seriously, way
week.
too much math. Who are you? We talk on TV for a living. Who did that math for you?
Oh, just wait till the pregame show on Saturday.
Goodness.
We're going to be breaking this thing down for you.
Oh, goodness.
Big week, obviously. A lot of hype
going
on. I don't know. There's this big rivalry game, apparently. So
Is it a big rivalry, though? That's the question. I mean, honestly, this is something I found really interesting to be talking to everybody about. The fans are really excited about this one. You talk to anybody who used to play NDSU or UND football, we've got a ton of great interviews with all of these guys who played in the glory days, and played in this rivalry, and they absolutely loved it. They can't wait for this game to get underway. But you talk to the players this week, and it's really any other week. And sometimes you talk to these guys, I've had the privilege of talking to them over the last 5 seasons and talking to them about national championship football games. They're like, well, you have to treat it like any other week. We call it coach speak, we call it player speak. And you've heard them talk about this and say, oh, you have to prepare like it's any other week. It's any game. It's not that big of a deal. The national spotlight's not that big of a deal. But they are honestly 100% genuinely saying, this is like any other week for these guys. UND, NDSU, it doesn't matter who you're talking to. It's any other week.
Well, I think UND a little bit different. In my opinion, no matter what the score is on Saturday, Bubba Schweigert wins. This is the most hype, obviously, UND's had in a long, long time in the state. Great recruiting tool for him. But I think to give people an idea of just sort of how, I do not want to use the word mundane, but for lack of a better word at 6:30 at night, I will. This is Carson Wentz's response to you ask him, hey, how big of a deal is this? And here's what obviously our star quarterback had to say.
Ever since this game was put on the schedule, everybody's wanted to talk about it. So now that the week's finally here, so it's understandable. It's easy for me to personally keep it out of my mind, but when everyone else wants to talk about it and bring it up, it makes it a little more difficult. But I think we've handled it pretty well around here.
Keep in mind, kid grew up in Bismarck. He's obviously been around this rivalry, and even he was sort of like, what?
Well, you ask him, who do you know anyone on the UND football team personally? And he says, yeah, they've got a receiver that I played against in baseball as a kid. He didn't even play him in football, really. He said maybe when the kid was a sophomore and Carson was a senior, they played in Century versus, Bismarck High rivalry games, but he doesn't really know anyone. It's besides the guys both being recruited in the state of North Dakota by both schools typically, a lot of these guys don't really know each other. There's not a ton of correlation between any of them, but I think it's going to be a good football game. I thought you brought up a great point. This is a win for UND. They're taking on the 4-time defending national champions, and they have a chance to hang with them, to take a football game to them. They've beaten Wyoming. They won against Drake. It wasn't a great game, let's be honest. It wasn't a great game, but they beat Drake. They're coming into this game 2-0. I think you talk about this game 2 years ago, there's no ways anybody's like, oh, UND will come in 2-0 and has an opportunity to play a football game. What
I want to hear from you is you look at Bubba, obviously has got a big tradition, with UND and in this game won, but also was at Southern Illinois, was the D coordinator there from 2000 to 2013. I was crunching some numbers. Back in 2011, wasn't necessarily their prime, but they had 60 yards rushing against Bubba's defense. Now again, 2013 they had over 300, so different story. But I guess my question to you, Bubba runs a 3-4 defense. The guys are small up front for UND, but that may surprise some of these younger guys because of all the stunts, and they may have some more speed. What say you to all that?
I think NDSU, they know they sometimes struggle against the 3-4 defense because it's something different. Carson said today that, yeah, it makes things a little murky at the beginning of the week, but like you said, Bubba used to coach at Southern Illinois. They're familiar with Southern Illinois. These coaches at NDSU have coached against Southern Illinois for a long time. They're prepared for that. They know they struggle with it. They've been breaking it down. And the best part is they're playing a 3-4 defense in the Fargo Dome, where it's going to be silent when NDSU is on offense, and their guys are going to be able to communicate. And you've got Carson Wentz looking at this defensive stance and able to try and determine what they're disguising and what they're looking to present. And I don't know, if I'm the offensive coordinator, if I'm the Bison, if I'm a Bison fan, I want Carson Wentz, if anyone, looking over that defense and making these decisions.
But that's my question. I know you've talked a lot with the offensive line coach Riley. Are the young, because they had a lot of young guys play last week. You got Zach Zemer at left guard. So now all of a sudden you've got this 3-4. It's a new look. You're going to have a bunch of different stunts. These guys are a lot lighter. I'm presuming a lot quicker. Does that pose problems if these light guys start shooting these gaps really quick? Is Zemer going to be able to adapt?
I think so. I think that, yes, they're going to be caught off guard a couple of times. I think you're going to see Carson take a little bit more pressure because, like you said, they're going to be quick. They might sneak through some of these gaps a little bit more, but I don't think it will be 4 quarters of struggle. I think you'll see a little early pressure. I think you'll see the offensive line meeting and huddling up and talking about what they're missing, and they're going to communicate, they're going to adapt, and they're going to adjust. And I think that's how NDSU wins this game. I think they're able to adjust where they need to better than UND will be able to adjust for what NDSU throws at them.
So as people watch the game 2:30 on Saturday, the most important thing to watch for is what, in your opinion?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean,
which Coach Kleiman wears on the sidelines?
I mean, you know, like I've got a pretty cute outfit planned out. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think it'll be an exciting game early on. I think NDSU wraps it up. I think NDSU adjusts, and I think they run away with it.
And they win by,
in
really?
The end. I do.
By 21 or?
Yeah, I think 20. Yeah, I think
Wow.
easy. Yeah, I think they run away with it. I just think NDSU is too familiar with playing in the big game. I don't think there's any stage, and I don't think an in-state rivalry that, you know, only Randy Hedberg has any experience with. You know, is maybe Tyler Roll remembers it. You know, he'd probably be a good guy we should have talked to this week about it. West Fargo kid, played at NDSU.
But I think Bubba's associated to it. Does Bubba have maybe an X factor in the locker room this week and throughout practice that gives these guys a little bit? Because I mean, let's face it, Wyoming was
That's
a
what I
huge
mean.
win for those
NDSU,
guys.
I think UND will come out and they'll bring a game and they'll have intensity and excitement and they'll be hyped up for this. But I don't think it's as much they're taking on NDSU. I think they're taking on the 4-time defending national champions. We took down Wyoming. We can take down anyone. We've got our first FBS win. Yeah, I think they've got the billboards plastered. And I think they're ready to take it to them.
By the end of the day, you got to have the athletes.
But and you have to play 4 quarters of football. And I think NDSU saw what happened when they didn't play 4 quarters of football against Montana. That's not going to happen again this year. I don't think these guys let that happen. I saw Coach Kleiman fired up last week on the sideline because his defense had a couple of, you know, miscommunications and what like that. He's not having it, and I don't think these guys are going to have it either because nobody was shaken up by Coach Kleiman, you know, grabbing the clipboard and yelling directions out to them. They all seemed hungry. They wanted to get back out there and play again. I think NDSU can adjust in ways that UND just isn't quite there yet.
We will see if they can stop Santiago and Studsrud. Love the name. I want to remind you, join us Saturday, 1:30 p.m. for the Farmers Union Insurance Bison football pregame show. Myself, Alex Egan, and DJ Coulter giving you some pregame analysis there. And as we said earlier, Beth, 2:30 p.m. will be on the sideline for the game. And also Brian Shawn and Lee Timmerman, our team, doing an outstanding job covering these games in HD for you. And coming up in our final view tonight, I'm going to share with you a little bit of video. I don't know if you've seen this, Fire and Ice. The old rivalry video, Fire and Ice, talks about the UND-NDSU rivalry. It is phenomenal. So we'll share a bit of that with you. Also, coming up next, SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions. Their executive director, their leader, is going to join us right after this.